I was thinking this tonight watching Wiggins, and you texted me. You're like, God,
Plus
Wiggins.
22. Andrew Wiggins, plus 22 tonight.
So I was thinking about this. Tell me what you think about this. Because he had one of the nastiest dunks. There's a long list of the nastiest dunks. I saw the other day somebody posted Scottie Pippen dunking. I think might have been on Malone, and like does a point, stands over him, does a point in his face.
I thought Scotty had one over like Alonzo Mourning or Mutombo or a center.
Oh, was it one of the? Okay, I didn't. The one that I always go to is Sean Kemp dunking actually on a Warrior, Alton Lister, and he does like a point at him after he dunks on him. It's a vicious. I just happened to watch it a month ago several times. It's a vicious dunk, and it's it's a vicious dunk. I think it might have been a playoff game.
Is it Shaq the one where he shoves? Is it Dudley down? Chris Dudley.
Chris Dudley.
Yeah, remember the white guy for the Knicks? And he dunks on him. He shoves him.
I didn't realize. So like I saw the Wiggins dunk, and I had that portion of the game muted. I didn't realize like why Steve Kerr had to challenge the play because they called a charge on it, which is outrageous. But it worked out for the Warriors because then it meant that the thing got replayed on the video board. But I was thinking about Wiggins in the championship Warriors era. If you said non-Steph, Clay, Draymond type storylines, because those guys, if when the whole thing is done, then the dynasty's over. Those three guys are the three best stories that were a part of that era. I'd say the best story probably, I think, and maybe you can think it's just as I've been thinking about the last 20 minutes. To me, probably the best other story is Andre Iguodala had like the Wiggins career on steroids, right? He was a much better player than Wiggins was before he became a Warrior. And then he had this whole other career with the Warriors that took the previous part, just his entire career, to another level, even though he was a different type of player. Andre Iguodala never came off the bench a single time in his career before he came to the Warriors. From day one, lottery pick out of Arizona, the man started every game. And in fact, his first year with the Warriors, he started every game. Yeah. And then Steve Kerr arrives and he just starts coming off the bench. And like, to me, that him then going, death lineup develops. So he's not a starter, but he's a closer. And then he wins the finals MVP in the first championship, defending the greatest player on earth, LeBron. I think that's the best non-Draymond, Clay, Steph storyline of this whole thing. Now, some people, obviously Durant becoming a Warrior.
Yeah, but they inherited an all-time great player. Like that was gonna.
Well, I think the Hamptons meeting became like that piece of the whole thing became pretty incredible, and then the breakup became incredible. That whole thing's also incredible. They won 73 games, for crying out loud. Like, that's incredible. But in terms of individuals, and I kind of feel, I don't know what Wiggins ultimately will do, if he'll decide to go somewhere else or if he'll stay a Warrior for the rest of his career, if that's even a possibility. But what's happening with him,
he's got the Kings giving him $250 million right now.
I know, and I won't blame him. You can't blame a guy, right? Especially if he has a ring. You can't blame.
He's got the Bryant. He's got the Kings or the Magic giving them $220.
And I get it. You can't blame Chris Bryant for signing with the Rockies, even though it just sounds miserable.
I think the Rockies are actually pretty good this year. Have you seen that?
Well, I know, but it's 17 degrees at first pitch sometime. But I think Wiggins has a chance to be, if they win a championship with this team, one of, the handful of fantastic kind of individual stories over the course of this whole Warriors era.
Guy, he has been, I know they're acting like just this series. He has been awesome, really, the majority of the year. How hard was he playing defense tonight? You see him picking up Luka like 3/4 court and running around. I saw they asked him the other night about like if he runs out of gas or anything, how he's doing. He's like, I don't even know. I'm just so locked in. He's like a understated, guy. He's not like he's trying to make it about him. He's just like, I don't know. I'm just locked in. And he doesn't look like he's getting tired. There is something to be said about, and I think you saw it in the golf today, like when an elite talent gets really confident, there is no ceiling. Like Wiggins, the talent the guy possesses is pretty immense, right? He's 6'7", he's long, he's bouncy. He can
The way he moves in the lane, just spin,
He-
like the way he finishes with spins. Not even the dunks are ridiculous. But
but he looks just movement wise. If you didn't
Yeah.
know the story, you'd go, yeah, that's a top pick. That's a high level elite. Honestly, when you watch him play like this, and when Poole hit the shot at the end of the game, you're like, well, if they're going to have a third splash, bro, and Wiggins fucking jumping around like he's Michael Jordan meets Tracy McGrady, like, they're not going to lose. Like, they're not. If Steph, Clay, and Draymond are just going to be Steph, Clay, and Draymond, even if it's this version of kind of Clay now that's not. But if Poole's going to be a reliable scorer and that's Wiggins, this thing's a wrap, guy.
yeah,
Like the Mavs, they just don't have enough. Brunson, does he have a little
No.
Damon Stoudemire thing going?
he's good. I like him. I mean, he's really
I like a
likable.
little guy with post moves. Reminds me of when I was 10. I always dreamed of being a post guy.
Everybody, yep. The turnaround on air.
But he's like, he can hit it over people, and he's so small.
I know.
I like his game's pretty fun to I like reminisce about my childhood.
Reminds you of your
watching
game. That's the scouting report.
But don't you feel
Jalen
like
Brunson?
doesn't he look like an old school player? Like he doesn't
does.
look like a guy in 2022, more like a guy like when we were kids in like 95. There were a lot of
Yeah,
guys in the league like that.
He feels like a hard-nosed guy that could have played in the 90s.
That guy's sweet.
Yeah. Yeah. But I agree. I mean,
Luke is pretty incredible too, but
and by the way, Clay's not some defensive liability. Like Clay had the one defensive sequence Clay on Luka where Luka ends up airballing a shot at the end of the shot clock from the free throw line was a really impressive defensive effort from Clay, right?
Well, don't you think too? Like, let's say Clay, his peak. Let's say right now he's 70% of his peak, right, or whatever. Just a number that's clearly not where he was when he was 100 out of 100. You watch these other teams; they would die to have this version of a guy that at any moment can drop 18, 22 points, be a big body, play easily 35 to 40 minutes. And they're able to circumvent him not being an elite all-star guy right now because they got Wiggins and Poole that like fill in that gap and actually exceed it.
Yeah.
They're not as good as the team with Durant, but this team, if Wiggins is going to play like this, like they're winning it. Because Looney, the thing, they got two guys, Looney and Draymond, who don't need to do anything besides like rebound, dunk, play D, try. I mean, they got two guys that play a lot that don't need shit.
I know. I think the thing with Looney, though, he is such a great pass catcher. I think it's like his most underrated. And maybe it's not underrated. I don't know. But it's when big guys catch passes consistently in short areas, it stands out because it's not a common skill. He has some really uncommon skills for a guy that he's weird to watch because the way he moves, you don't think he would be as smooth at everything else, but he's smooth at everything else.
Beast,
right? He's such a good short area pass catcher, which is so critical because these guys move the ball so well. Wiggins moves so well without. I mean, it's just Wiggins shooting 39%. He's having a career year from three, shooting 39%. But imagine if he just never just ended up on this team. What would be said about his career? He's 26. He's in his prime, but he's been in the league almost a decade.
But a lot of guys in the NBA, right? Because you just are going to go to the same teams picking the top five. It feels like every year.
Yeah.
And, only a small percentage of them truly can overcome it. It's why I do think a lot of guys, like even in like the 12 to 15 range, they get drafted by teams that are a little bit better than super shitty teams, like a Paul George. Guys like that just get to go to don't get to go to the shittiest teams. Their careers actually turn out okay. Right, because they just get to be a part of like higher level basketball. Like, can you imagine just getting drafted by the Magic year in, year out? Like, we're just always going to suck. Like, we are never going to be good. The T-Wolves were kind of a joke. I mean, and listen, you could say he didn't know what was going on, but environment matters. Most people are not Steph Curry. They can just like go to the Warriors. They were a fucking clown show and then turn them into a behemoth. Right? Most people are not LeBron that can do that with Cleveland. Most people, I would say Wiggins is actually the norm. Like, because a lot of guys in the NBA that are drafted high, even if they don't ever live up to it, you go, God, the guy had some talent, though, man.
Yeah.
Now,
Wiggins,
I'd say he has got to be. I mean, he really, really benefited from being around. I'd say the greatest trio of teammates the league's ever. I mean, they're the great teammates you could ever have.
Yeah. And
he's want to play with in league history. They're like nice to you. They include you. They root for you. They don't.
I know.
It's just
they pass you the ball. Like their coach makes them pass you the ball. You're not getting frozen out.
No.
The only problem is you got to pass it too. You got to pass it back.
It's the only team that's a great team in league history that fans constantly complaining about too many passes. Like, why are we moving the ball so much? Just go ISO.
I know.
It's always
the
the other
argument.
way.
Yeah. Well, the more I've had people tell me like, well, every time you pass the ball, the percentage chance of a turnover goes up by X. But they're really actually. Stan Van Gundy said something during the game that the problem with the Warriors isn't necessarily the turnovers; it's when they're not making shots. Because when they make shots, they make up for the fact that they turn the ball over. But when they're not making shots and they're turning it over, I don't.
They're going to be
to
NBA
me,
champions, guy.
It never
NBA champions.
It just doesn't matter to me when they're down 16 points like they were the other night, or 19, I guess, or when they're down 9 in the first half. I don't know if there's ever a more irrelevant deficit than when this team.
I was out at dinner. I thought they were in a little trouble on game 2 tonight. Yeah. I thought that was a pretty impressive win. But again, they've been doing that a lot this playoffs of just they can look really weird. They just have this thing right now, and goes back to the Patriots of their run. These guys just know how to win. It can look really ugly, and they can win. They can blow you out, but they know how to just when the game ends, they can just have more points than you. And I know that sounds like, of course, well, I just mean a lot of teams. Look at the Suns struggled with that by year 2. They couldn't get it. The Mavs don't have enough, but you see the Celtics and Heat. They're both kind of trying to figure it out. Like the Warriors, I unless they have a major injury to one of their top 6 guys. To me, anything less than a championship now to me would be pretty disappointing.
It's hard to Matt. You got to picture them losing to Miami or losing to Boston, and it's hard because I think they're a better team than both of those teams. I think Boston, who's down 2-1, to me feels like a better team than Miami.
But even if they win that series, that means it's got to go 6 minimum.
Yeah.
So it might go 7. So it's hard to sweep. When you say
be impressed if they do.
You think the Warriors sweep? Or just the Mavs, you just go down.
Like you said, it's hard to sweep. Gentlemen sweep 5, but yeah, I think they can. Absolutely, I think they can sweep.
I think so too.
I did. Or the Mavs did that. I can't believe I was so happy when the story finally developed that they have been finding the Mavs. You shouldn't be allowed to be anywhere near the court if you're wearing jeans. I feel like David Stern.
Are you serious? Is it really that big a deal?
No, not they're going nuts. I just think it's crazy that a guy who should be on the end of your bench stands in front of your coach. Like he should be on the end of the bench. That's the end of the bench where you're hurt. You stand at the end of the bench. You should not be allowed to stand in front. No, I think it's. I actually do think it's kind of nuts that the guy who's in jeans, not playing, stands closer to the floor than your coach. Like you should be at the end of the bench.
Are they fining him $25,000 a game? Was that what it was?
I thought they got hit 100 the other day.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty big.
Because he's wearing the white shirt. And Steph throws him the ball. Yeah, it's ongoing. Somebody wrote a piece. I didn't read it. Why the Mavs keep paying the fines, basically, why they don't change their behavior.
Well, I listened to Tim McMahon. I think one of the things their team hangs their hat on right now is they have elite chemistry. Like all their guys like each other, and Jason Kidd likes the guy who's doing that. But again, like you're making fun of, they're in the Western Conference Finals. They had a lot of people didn't think they were making it out of the first round.
I'm not saying they should move their guy. I'm saying the guys who aren't in uniform should have to remain at the end of the bench. Not you can't for a minute run, but spend the whole game just standing up there is crazy.
Isn't the guy? That's not Tim Hardaway. That's another.
No, it's
guy.
not Tim Hardaway.
Yeah, I think Jason Kidd called that guy who you're complaining about one of the secrets for the team.
Yeah, I will. Like I said, there's an article about they keep paying the fines because they love the guy.
Yeah,
and obviously, I mean, Mark.
What's he supposed to do? Stop.
Mark is right there in G. Mark's there.
But you see, when we were young in high school,
I know
that was Mark Cuban.
I know.
I think that's kind of the Mavs ethos is being
totally. But can you just imagine Lacob just on the bench or whoever?
He would if he sat over there. He sits. His wife's on Molly next to him, and they're doing weird stuff. You see that video? What was she doing? Was she playing for the cameras? You think?
I don't know what that. I don't know.
I mean, maybe
I think it's an overwhelming experience. You are. I'm not specifically to her, but I bet if you go to all these games, being on the floor and
it's your husband's team. I don't even know if
it's your team. Yeah,
she says our.
I would.
We own the Warriors.
Tonight, Chuck was like, if I'm the Mavs, And Kenny's like, we? I giving him shit. Like, this is your team, Chuck. You're the Mavs guy.
He came in on a horse today. You see that?
I did not see that. No.
They brought so like where their setup was, they had fans everywhere, but they did like basically a huge line where they split it where a horse could walk, and all of a sudden comes around the corner. All the guys are sitting there waiting. Chuck comes on a horse, with two people holding the horse and walks them all the way to the end. And then they're like, here's the moment of truth is when he has to get off the horse and take the one leg from the far side over, and he could barely get it over. It's pretty funny.
I got to go back and watch that.
They got a pretty special thing going. Problem with Charles is, he to me is playing with it more than like super serious, like Skip with LeBron.
Yeah.
But when you pick, he ultimately picks against, like he wants the Warriors to lose. He'd look smart, just like Skip picks against LeBron. Like it's one thing to like. I bet against James Harden and Chris Paul. You guys are betting against teams that they're going to win more often than not. Like you're going to get burnt. You're going to look like an idiot. He shorted the wrong horse here, guy. I mean, I'm
watching him get on here. I mean, it's a pretty bad short too. I guess, what happened in game 7, the demolition of the Suns, and people thought so highly of the Suns, like thought that the Suns were going to give the Warriors such a hard time, and then the Mavs beat them. I could understand picking the Mavs, I guess. I guess. But my problem is we just put the two rosters side by side. You look at how much this one roster is won, and it's not like the Warriors are a bunch of old guys. I know Iguodala's hurt, and they are older, but I just don't know how you could take that team.
I feel like Andre Iguodala is Steve Kerr's like spirit animal. Like he just loves that guy. They just love each other. They're like
a couple Arizona guys.
Yeah, they just a vibe together. I don't know, something about those two. Because a couple times you complained, I saw Iguodala right out there, right next to Steve.
I didn't say you can never run out there. I'm saying to spend the whole game standing there. I
didn't realize he spends the majority that clearly he does. Is that also the guy did Mark Davis tell him to take off his shirt? Did you see that?
Oh, is that what that was?
I think that makes sense now because he's wearing the same colors. Like, bro,
does he always just wear the Warriors jersey color?
Has he been doing this all season long, wearing the color of the shirt? Maybe they're doing that on purpose.
Can he shoot, or they just hire him for that? They just
who knows if he can even play basketball? Maybe he's just friends with Luka. They're like, bring this guy around. He's a good high character. People like him.
Oh man, good sports day today. I mean,
there's something to be said though about teams that just like each other.
No, there absolutely is.
But I'm saying the Warriors too. Like they clearly kind of just like playing with each other.
Yeah, you would probably say that about. There's something to be said about TNT show. Guys who just get along, like people who just authentically get along, right? It's just in life, there's just something to be said about not hating. So many people are used to hating the people they work with.
I would say the majority of people hate the people they work with. I mean, it's a theme. Every single person complains about someone they work with, and sometimes it's worse than others. But I think the best part about the TNT show that you can't not laugh every time you watch it, and that's not normal. Like legitimately die outside, like you just laugh. They make you laugh because it's like legitimately funny. Everyone's like, "Oh my, Charles not breaking down basketball." That's not the point of this whole deal, you idiots. I actually went to a YouTube to watch Charles, like in the mid '80s for the Sixers, and I think he's almost. I don't think even people can even comprehend, younger people, how fucking good that guy was at basketball.
Yeah.
I mean, because I think he's become such a character and such a big man,
and also the older version of himself. Yeah,